Hi everyone, we're going to read from The Dragon's Child again today. Chapter 8, Doggins. "Run, run, run," cried Manon. The welcome people were staring at the trees in horror and hardly noticed Dando racing through the midst. He scampered under the bushes, out onto the cliffs and down to the sand, and he ran from beach to beach until he found a new cave. A deep, dark, hidden cave with an entrance so well concealed that only the bird's sharp eye could have seen it. "What's the matter with you?" Great Smold roared at his people. "Are you afraid of howling? Light the torches and into the forest with you. Come on, I'll lead the way." The fabulous beast could wait a while. Great Smold wanted to know what sort of creatures were making that horrible noise. The welcome people felt ashamed. They were strong and fierce. They shouldn't be afraid of a noise, however terrible. They lit their torches and ran into the forest. Deeper and deeper they went until darkness smothered the light and the flames began to waver in the airless crush of leaves and branches. Deeper and deeper, while the howling faded to a distant wail, and at last the welcomes were almost lost in the thick, dark silence of the forest. And then, in the glimmer of dying flames, Great Smold caught just one glimpse of a horrible creature before it vanished. "Doggins," he whispered. "That's what they are. I've heard stories of what they can do. Come on, let's go back and make the campfire safe." The welcome people hardly slept a wink that night. They took turns pacing around the camp, torch in hand, peering into the darkness, ready to call a warning if the Doggins attacked. But Manon was so happy to know the little dragon was free, she crept into her shelter, pulled a blanket over her eyes, and fell fast asleep. Next day, the welcome people built a stout fence around their camp and a high tower where one of them could sit all day observing the edge of the forest. But the Doggins never attacked in daylight. They came out at night, howling and screeching outside the fence, but never daring to go farther. The welcome people left their torches burning all night long, and the Doggins kept their distance at first. They were afraid of fire. Soon the Doggins grew bolder. They would shake the fence posts, tear at the posts, and thrust their long, hairy arms through the wood. The welcome people became quite worn out with anxiety and sleeplessness. They spent their days repairing the fence and trying to think of ways to stop the Doggins from making their lives a misery. But even Great Smold was too tired to come up with any ideas. Weeks passed in this way, and everyone forgot about the small, fabulous beast that once caused such excitement. Everyone except Manon. Manon and one other, Lord Drum, could think of nothing else. Ignoring the nightly barks and howls, he would lie awake, remembering the dread that had flickered in the eyes of the fabulous beast when he approached. And when he slept, his dreams were filled with the image of the small, coppery green creature wrapped in Manon's arms. A few days after the dragon child escaped, the bird led Manon to his new hidden cave, and she visited him nearly every day. The welcome people were too preoccupied to notice when she raided their storerooms, and she was able to take the dragon dried fish, salt, pork, cornbread, fruit, biscuits, cakes, and vegetables. All sorts of delicious and nourishing food found its way into Dando's secret cave. He would eat almost anything, and his appetite was enormous. After a while, Manon began to notice a change in the dragon's child. His delicate copper-green wings turned a shade darker. The spines on his back hardened into spiky triangles that pricked their hands when they tried to stroke him. Very soon it became impossible to put both arms around the dragon's neck. He had grown too big. And his welcoming grunts were now accompanied by tiny sparks that stung Manon's cheeks. One day when Manon slipped out of the storeroom with a bucket of corn, she found Lord Drum bearing her way. "I've been watching you," he said. "You've been stealing our food." Manon glared at Lord Drum. "I'm hungry," she said, "and it isn't stealing. I work hard for what I get." "But it's not for you, is it?" Lord Drum plunged his hand into the bucket and brought out a fistful of corn. "It's for the amazing beast, I know it is. Can't he catch his own food yet?" "It's none of your business," snapped Manon. Yes, it is. He belongs to me. I caught him." "He doesn't belong to anyone," Manon declared, "and you'll never, ever see him again." "I'll follow you," said Lord Drum, "and I'll find out where he's hiding." Manon dropped her bucket. "You'll be sorry if you do," she said in a low whisper. Once you nearly killed him, but you can't hurt him now. He's grown too big. And if you come anywhere near him, he'll fry you to ashes." To Maynan's surprise, Lord Drum didn't argue. He took a step backward, letting the corn trickle through his fingers. "Will he always hate me?" he asked with a catch in his voice. "Who knows?" said Maynan, and she pushed past the boy with a scowl that made him wish he had never asked her. To make sure she wasn't followed, Maynan took a different route to the dragon's cave that day. Every now and then she stopped and glanced over her shoulder, but Lord Drum was too quick for her. He always managed to duck behind a tree or a bush or a boulder. And in this way he followed Maynan all the way down to a small secluded beach that he had never seen before. When he saw Maynan slip behind the tall gray rock that hid the dragon's cave, Lord Drum hung back, afraid of what the dragon might do to him. And something in the air made him shiver, a feeling of unease. But the sounds beyond the steep white cliffs were muffled and remote. Howls and cries were nothing more than a distant whine, like wind sighing through the bushes. How could Lord Drum have known that the Doggins, braving daylight at last, were in that very moment climbing into the Welkins' camp?